Hello, welcome to the Collector RC. Alright, so yeah, long time no here. So the past 12 days we've only put out 2 videos, and it seems kind of shocking, like, oh no, they're slowing down. Not the case. And not the last video I just put out, but the video before that. In the descriptions we kind of went over, we went camping, trying to just describe what we've been doing, but we went camping because ended up having to go back to work, which was a good thing. Me and little bro we're still waiting on our return. So anyway, we've just been really, that kind of stuff was changing things, so we had to kind of reevaluate what how much time we can end up putting into our driving and all that kind of stuff. Obviously we're full onto the RC hobby completely still. That has not changed. In fact, we've done probably a lot that we haven't actually put out on film yet. So yeah, but so the camping, we would have had a ton of filmage, but unfortunately pretty much the entire camping trip it poured down rain, so we got very little, unfortunately. And so now we're gonna have to plan another one on a hopefully nicer weather outcome. But anyway, so this video is just going to be the pros and cons of my, I guess you could say, my opinions, or my views of putting this together for the SCX 10-3. I don't actually have a whole lot of cons, to be honest, but I will go over a couple of them, and they're just minor details that don't even matter. So, to be honest, one of the things I did originally do is, this was the original ESC and motor I installed. Any of you guys that are more veterans right away knew, like, wow, that's a lot of power. You're not going to get what you want out of there, except unless you're going for the Basher style, or monster truck style, which I very well could with this system. It's super fast. It's over 20 miles an hour. In here with the 15, and that actually would have been, yeah, with the 15 tooth pinion. So, but I took it out. We ended up putting a different system in here. So we'll quickly go over that. I kind of showed it already, I think, but it is a here's the container here. It's a Team Brewed 35 tooth brushed, yeah, 540, I believe. It is quite small compared to what I originally had in there. You can see that I do not have some of the scale stuff on here. I couldn't, even though I can still put the top part on, but I'm going to go over why those aren't on there. The ESC is way smaller, sorry about the focusing there, than what I originally had on there. And yeah, but it does run way smoother now. It's an actual crawler trail. Transmission is doing really well with this. It was a little questionable with that system in there, so it handled it very well. It's just really jumpy, so it crawls real smooth now. It's when it's going real slow, it's super quiet. And yeah, and this is really basic ESC. I probably will eventually go into an axe setup. Right now I'm fine with this. I really like these motors. I really wanted to kind of play with it for a while. They are more excuse me, for more competition grade. That's kind of where this style comes into play. So, and again, sorry about the focusing. It seems to want to be a pain in the butt. So anyway, let's go over my cons real quick, because the pros you kind of already know, and the overall but my evaluation of this, I'll tell you right now, is actually pretty good for being a kid. I don't have a extensive history in RC like a lot of people, but I do have a pretty good history of robotic engineering and robotics. So I kind of that's kind of where my stuff comes into play, and that's where my cons come in. So one of the first things is going through the instructions. I've heard a lot of people throughout YouTube that were complaining about how the instructions weren't that good. There was a lot of things that were wrong in it, that you can't just really follow it. And I got a lot of people telling me that I should have watched other YouTubers, people that already figured out, more experienced people. I managed to build the whole thing without using any YouTube help whatsoever. So the instructions can be done, and granted, it doesn't. My experience as far what I relate that those instructions to is, if any of you are from the 90s and if you had GI Joes, let's say, the smaller, you know, the 5-inch guys, you guys, you know, a little bit smaller than this guy here. But if you had any of them, you know, any of their toys, and you built into their stuff, it was kind of this. It's kind of the same thing. You know, their instructions weren't exactly perfect. You kind of had to figure out a few things yourself. Most of the time, you got so good at it, you just didn't even need the instructions at all. It was kind of, you can figure it out. And so what I felt with this, with instructions with this, was that a lot of it was just, I mean, just, you know, self-explanatory, I guess you could say. I would say it would help that I had a little bit of experience with other RCs and knowing how they run and all that kind of stuff. So, but that was, and then one of the things about the instructions is that, or just an overall the kit, is that some of the parts of the instructions, it would show near the end, it would show that there were parts installed when they weren't actually installed yet. So it kind of made certain things confusing. And then there were certain areas in the instructions where there would be a couple arrows that would show where you were supposed to put it, whether it be on top or underneath a certain area, like when you're doing a lot of the links. And the arrow wasn't quite appropriate, it wasn't quite in the right direction, so it can kind of be confusing on if it's supposed to go on above or beyond, or above or below. One of the things you could relate that to would be installing the dual transmission here. One of the parts, you have to make sure that it's actually goes below. Anyway, you'll know if you built one of these. So as far as that, that was really the only cons of that. There were a lot of, a suggestion I would strongly like to give Axial is that when putting your screws and parts, it was nice that you put all the screws that go for that particular area of instructions and part that you're working on. But I think to help people out, especially if you're going to put this, depending on if it's a class 1, class 2, as far as your skill build, maybe label individualize the screws in their own compartments. You can use the same bag and just use heat press and divide them. And then even if you don't label them, just at least do that, because having to go through an entire bag of screws, you kind of won't need to measure them, because unless your eyes are really good, you know, a 10 millimeter and an 8 millimeter can look real close, and you can that can easily be messed up. And I'm sure a lot of people did that. I know I did a few times, and overall it wasn't too bad. I used a caliper. If you don't know what it is or have one, I strongly suggest, if you're going to do kits, this is a very handy tool to have with you. It makes things a lot easier, and you can organize your stuff a little bit better if your eyes aren't perfect. But that was just my suggestion for Axial, you know, the company themselves. Other than that, I love it. I love that stuff, or love this thing, and I kind of like, you know, having to think that way. But it's just a strong, you know, a good suggestion maybe to help other people out, to make things simpler. And it's nothing that's going to cost you more money to actually do it. And speaking from being an engineer tech, that would be my job. So I'm just telling you, you can do that and not cost. It won't cost you more money. So anyway, but that's something that can be, you know, you can work around it. It's just, anyway. So my next thing is that motor size. It's another con. With this setup, if you want to use the scale engine molds on here, you have to be particular what engine or motor you're putting in here, because when I put, if I put this size in here, the only thing I could fit on there was barely I can put the front fan system mold on there, and it barely fit. There was no way I was going to put the top on. It didn't fit where my servo is. You can see the servo is a real tight fit in here, very tight. And the way the wire was protruding out, it wasn't going to, on the top, was no way going to allow anything on the top there. This here, the only reason why I can't put anything on here is I did not solder. I'm using jumpers because the ESC cables weren't quite long enough, and I just didn't feel like soldering them at the moment. So I could put that system on now with this smaller motor on there. I just haven't, and I can't lift. This isn't lift. So once the body's on, it's on. So I don't really see the point of putting that on, right? So Don't worry, that's ibuprofen you saw over there. People are like, oh my goodness, pills. No, it's ibuprofen. But anyway, the other thing I would have to say is that there was another point, and I kind of just had a brain fart, excuse me. The besides the screws, besides the motor, the body was a little difficult. I'm not a fan of having to put, whoa, excuse me, put the body on the bottom. I don't, it's a pain in the butt. The front ones aren't bad. It's the back ones. Back ones, pain in the butt. It's just a pain. I have to, it's hard. And I would imagine for people that are especially older than me, it's having to bend over or hold your truck up. It's just kind of a, I get it. It's not that big of a deal. It's kind of a petty thing, but it's kind of a pain in the butt too. So, another thing I don't like, I would have to say, is that there's nowhere to properly install your antenna. There's no spot for it that I can find anywhere. So that is one thing I noticed. And if I'm wrong, please correct me and let me know where you know where it's at. I know I can set one up. That's not a problem, but it's just no place for it. And yeah. And there isn't really as much room as you think there is. You are kind of limited, because if you think about it now, if I go to install if I decide to do the dig, well, that's some things here will have to move, and that's fine, not a big deal. Other than that, all my room's pretty much taken up, and yeah. So, but other than that, so those are minor things, not even a big deal. I would say my biggest thing is not be able to put this stuff on, put on the scale items which I provide for you. The screw and instructions, that was kind of, the main cons. That's probably more of a more common con, I think, with this setup. And then, yeah, I think that was pretty much all the cons I can think of. And there's probably more than I'm not thinking of that maybe you have. And you can go ahead and put them in the comments and let us know. And, we'll look into them, of course. I did not have any clicking issues whatsoever with this motor or other motor. I'm not sure what's causing it or if it's been fixed. But as I went through this whole system, I consistently tried to test and to see if I can find anything that was related to it, to see if I could probably solve it, even though there was a whole bunch of other people that were already looking into it. And if somebody else did come up with it, I don't know yet. Please let us know in the comments as well. But as far as I did not experience it. I don't know if it's just a model thing or if it's something that Axial caught, pretty quick, and then maybe that there was different model numbers that came out that were different, or it's something that people aren't doing. One theory that I did have in the beginning was not properly putting enough grease in your differentials and transmission, or even in your portals. So that could be, I can see that being a common thing, that you need more grease than you think. Let's just say that. And it does matter what grease you put in there. So make sure there's a lot of YouTube videos on suggestions on that. So personally, I use marine grease on everything I do because it doesn't hurt. It's not too thick. It moves well, and it gives me, it's thick enough to where it gives me that smooth, quiet ride in my gears. So, and it's waterproof. Anyway, so yeah, that would be that's it for this video. Kind of a short one, I think. And I'm sure I'm gonna edit stuff out, make it shorter. But yeah. Oh, before I forget. So I am using the FlySky FS-GT3B controller. It is modded for LiPo and it is hacked. It does have some cool features to it that I've, and I would go over that, but there's already been a bunch of videos, kind of an old thing that's been done. So I'm not really going to go into too much detail with that. I might show you some of the things I've adjusted to go with this. It does work really well. I did the hack only I did the hack to get rid of that horrible low voltage alarm that it has on it, because it's horrible. And I want to be able to use 2S LiPo batteries without that alarm going off on me. So yeah, anyway, that's it. You guys have a great one, and love to see more as summer, and at least around the US. And I know summer's coming around. I know some of you guys, summer's different, and so, but yeah, keep RCing, and if you ain't breaking it, you ain't playing with it.